Welcome back, everyone, to Streamfest 2025. Super excited to have all 2,000 of you that sign up for our Streamfest. Welcome back to all the repeat attendees at this conference. I couldn't be more excited to be sharing the future roadmap of streaming AI Redpanda. So, as Tristan mentioned, please answer some of those polls. They will become vintage brand, as you'll see in just a second today. And so they're going to go fast today. So please make sure you enter that and answer any questions. I just wanted to give also a big warm welcome to our partners and customers that will be joined later today. So we'll have some of the world leading experts in AI, in data, in security, ranging from Databricks, Snowflake, as well as some of our customers from Rivian, Arctic Wolf, LiveRamp, ShareChat. And so it's going to be jam-packed with some of the world experts here joining us in just a second. As is tradition, and as Tristan mentioned, all of our demos are designed to be to the point. And so they should be super fun. Think, I guess not quite TikTok style, 30 seconds, but pretty close. They're about 5 minutes each on all of the demos. So it should be super fun. And I can't wait to share that with the rest of you. So with that, let's get started. And so as all of you, feel free to reach out to me on social media at emaxairnow. I'm going to be sharing here some slides now. And so, okay, this is a big moment. And maybe a time for all of us as a community to celebrate just the big transition of Redpanda into what we're going to talk about the rest of the keynote today, which is the agentic data plane. And so don't worry, we're going to walk through all of you. If you're already using Redpanda, our streaming and storage engine, our connectors, our BYOC, you're ahead of the pack. So it's great. You're already starting with a foot ahead. And so the whole point of the agentic data plane is really to help large enterprises run all their agents on your data safely. And the TLDR of the Redpanda ADP, the agentic data plane, is to give you connectivity, to give you context, governance that you need to deploy all these agents across your entire infrastructure. And so by way of introduction, if you've been hiding in a rock and you haven't heard about us over the last 6 years, don't worry, welcome back to the community. Welcome to the community, excited to have you. I want to share a couple of use cases with some of you. We have thousands of enterprises that we power and we partner with. But I want to highlight a couple of the mission critical use cases just to share, not to pat ourselves in the back as like, hey, Redpanda is great, but really to highlight where we tend to deliver the most value. I think it aligns you, the viewer, with like, okay, where does Redpanda fit in my mental model of the tech stack? And so it is likely that your paycheck got cleared a few days ago by Redpanda. And so we power some of the world, actually probably 3 of the top 5 banks in the US today. We also power some of the largest sporting events in the world. So it's hard for you to break a world record without Redpanda. It's also likely that the computer that you're typing in right now or that you're watching this has chips manufactured by way of Redpanda, or if you are trading in the stock market, if you're protecting whitehouse.gov, etc. This is to align us really that our bread and butter has been tier 0 mission critical use cases. That's where we tend to deliver the most value for most customers. And so for us, the Redpanda agentic data plane, this evolution is really to take that, that like punk rock systems attitude in a way and package it in a way that allows me to show up today authentically for you and say like, hey, this is what the Redpanda agentic data plane, and it's backed by like these deep technical pillars. So excited to chat with all of you today. If you have comments or questions, please type them in. My team is actively monitoring the chat. And it's always more fun when we get live questions. This is one of the advantages of using, basically an online platform to deliver the keynote. And so what is the agentic data plane? Like, I really struggled and debated, like, how can I share the world the simplest possible image that would convey, sort of the highest information density? And I think this is it. And obviously it's a balance. I think if you squint too hard, everything looks like a function with an input and an output. And so the intuition here for those of us that are trying to bring agentic behaviors into the enterprise. And before I talk about agentic behaviors, let's talk about what is an agent so that we're all using the same language. I want to demystify as much as we can over the hype and give you tools and tactical things that you can take away out of this talk. And so an agent, for me, I align, and therefore Redpanda aligns with the Anthropic definition of an agent, which is an LLM that you purchase, a prompt that you write, and a set of tools. This is really where Redpanda Agentic Data Plane shines in a for loop. That's really what an agent is. And so an agentic behavior is like you deploy, in many ways, these for loops, these agents that are autonomously making decisions, sort of the shift from the previous generation era of apps to the new generation. And so if your CIO is really trying to unlock a bunch of the private data sets, how is he going to do it safely? The intuition for where we came to the agentic data plane is that Redpanda has already been solving some of these challenges for a long, long time, whether it's access controls or observability or durability for some message passing, high availability. We're going to dig into all of these components today. At the highest level, you're going to have your action layer at the bottom. So this is if you are a revenue agent, and I'll share 3 examples that we use at Redpanda internally to power our systems. And so if you're a revenue agent, and the point is to research, hey, I'm going to send an email to Alex, who's the CEO of Redpanda. I want to propose that he purchases a particular software. I want to research who he is, the kind of language, how he prefers communications, bullet list for those of you listening. And so you have this action layer. And so I'm going to read his LinkedIn or his social posts, and then I'm going to send them an email. That's the action layer, right? So the sending of the email is the action, the reading of social media, perhaps integrating with your CRM, whether it's Salesforce or other systems. Those are tools. And so the thesis here, and we'll revisit this again in a second, is that private data is the next frontier for AI. And so if you assume all of the global models have already indexed all of the publicly available data, the enterprise is really the next level for AI, which is like, okay, you have the super useful models, but for most businesses, they don't, you're not asking questions, how do I change a bicycle tire? What you're trying to ask is like, I want to go from a prompt to, an outage resolution. And so that is an example of one of the agents that we use at Redpanda. We have a support agent. And so the idea is that when an engineering builds up a feature, they write the run book, which is like move data from cluster A to cluster B. I was like, okay, why couldn't an agent do it? Why couldn't an agent research a revenue agent? And some of you may have even interacted with some of our agents on Slack, whether people want to ask questions and you want to enhance it with, a knowledge-based agent, and then we want to track it internally. I was like, okay, our customers are struggling with this particular set of documentation or features. And so that's the action layer. The top layer, the reasoning layer, is the foundation model. Those are the things that you interact with. You purchase tokens from OpenAI or Anthropic or Poolside by way of example. And then Redpanda is really the layer that is going to securely mediate access across all of your entire private data. So let's dig in. Why now? Why are we talking now? And so the reason is that most enterprises, and to go back to the first slide, where we tend to deliver the most value is really either companies serving the global Fortune 2000 or the global Fortune 2000 themselves. And where they are struggling today is with access controls and observability. That's what governance really means for Redpanda at this level. And so you have, I think Tyler, and you'll hear him later today, he likes to talk about like the chaotic nature of these agents. And you kind of don't want to just lose them, set them loose with root access controls to APIs. And so there's been a fundamental shift in how we build applications. But to stay on topic of why now, why governance, is that you want to make sure that your agents are accessing the data that they are supposed to be accessing. And by the way, when something goes wrong and you deny the credit application, that you can go back and figure out, these were the reasons and the steps of why I denied this particular credit application. Perhaps you don't deny, perhaps you put it in a topic for a human in the loop concept. So if you're a bank, Maybe someone in the Philippines will wake up next day and review the credit applications as they do for most banks today, or maybe, doesn't matter where they do it, but the point is that you stash it later for later retrieval. And so I want to highlight here one meta point. And why did we have to invent this concept of the agentic data plane? And so historically, the movement to the data warehouse was that of tabular structured data into a disaggregated compute on a store so that you would get scale and you can actually unified access, right? So it was expensive to provision disk. It required you ordering a bunch of hardware. And so you got scalability, and then you got cost efficiencies by separating compute from a store. The next concept that came along was this idea of a lakehouse, large, but in many ways, sort of a dumping ground for all of your data, because it turns out that you can just push the complexity of making sense to data to a query engine. You're like, I want you to extract semantic meaning out of PDFs. I want you to tell me what the feeling of this song is. I want you to decode this particular video and frame it. I want you to find a cat in a video. And so that's really what the data lake was about. It's like, it was an evolution from not just the structured data, but to all kinds of data in a single place. And then you push the complexity to the query engine. The evolution into the agentic data plane really stems for a couple of insights. One, enterprises simply don't want to share their data because that is their alpha, that is their mode. It is your private data. But what they don't want to miss is they don't want to miss this moment in history. On the launch blog post, when I mentioned the acquisition of Oxa, and we're obviously going to talk about that today in just a second. What I mentioned is that it feels to me, I wasn't part of the birth of the internet, but it feels like a similar moment to me, where everything is getting redefined, where teams with better ideas can out-execute any incumbent. And so our hope is to partner with all of you to give us a chance to win together. And so the agentic data plane, it was this final shift away from just like a stagnant dumping ground of a data lake into this two-way bidirectional communications where agents are not simply consuming data, but they're also contributing back. And so you need an event-driven infrastructure, is our opinion, to ingest, loop, and process all of your data continuously in a way that is governed, in a way that the right people are accessing the right data. And we'll talk about some of the challenges with API root access in a second. And so, okay, what is the ADP in a picture? And so in many ways, you have your agents on the left, and we're going to give you a couple of diagrams to try and really build the intuition, trying to access data to the right, whether it's accounting systems or knowledge bases or HRS or your CRMs, etc. And it's really this idea that for us to affect the change that we want to see in the world, we have to meet developers where they are today. This is a philosophical difference from most people that you'll see or from most technologies. So as you're trying to build your mental map of where does the Redpanda technology fit in my stack, is really around us meeting you where you are today. And so for some people, and we'll mention the partnership with Poolside today, is in an air gap environment for governments. And so if you want to power some of the most sensitive data in the world, actually nation state level sensitivity, you really want an air gap environment that looks like a self-hosted environment to most. For others, it is a fully managed cloud where we get to run your infrastructure, where we call BYOC. And then for others, it's really multi-tenant. And so you really kind of partner where people are, both in their maturity journey, but also on the data sensitivity part. And I think in that way, Redpanda is very different. So let's take the next level. Let's peel the layer of the onion one more time. And let me talk about the specifics. And today, you're going to see a demo from Johannes and the rest of the cloud team on all of these pieces actually coming together. And so by the end of the day, you're going to be able to walk away and have a very concrete, okay, this is how the arrows connect. But at the highest level, we ship this MCP gateway to give people governed, audited access to a bunch of the internal systems. So if you imagine BYOC, bring your own cloud, for those of you that don't know what BYOC stands for, is the idea that we can deploy software inside your VPC. And so this MCP gateway comes by way of extension of Redpanda Connect's 300 plus connectors. And so last year, we bought a connectivity company that was called Benthos, is a longtime friend, Ash. We focus that technology into what we now call Redpanda Connect. And so it's this super rich, high quality connectivity portfolio, either for change data capture, for writing into Snowflake, into Databricks, for uploading data to S3, and it powers the world's largest e-commerce company. In fact, if you're dialing in from the UK, it's likely that the electricity that you're dialing in, that you're using to dial in to this conference, is in fact monitored and powered by Redpanda Connect. So it was used at massive, massive scale. And so let's bring us this high quality connectivity portfolio and wrap it in an AI-ready MCP gateway that gives you authenticated and authorized access to all of the internal data. At the same time, you need to be able to see when things go wrong. It is the credit denial application story. It is the support use case. It is the customer success agents that we have. They're just an example. It's the security pen tester. Something will go wrong, period. It's just sort of, if you've built enough systems, you know that at some point, like, someone is going to make a mistake, especially these autonomous boxes. And so you kind of have to be able to figure out and reconstruct the truth. And so this is really where the Redpanda Streaming and Storage Engine comes into play. On my left, you have the AI Gateway, which is a way to give people two things: runaway access controls. And so what happened to most of us, if you've built agents, is that you're gonna need to access sometimes multiple models, but only a subset of them are available to that particular product, to that particular person, to that particular business unit. And within that, you have budgets. Like, I want you to spend $1,000 a day and no more than 1,000, but no less than 500, whatever. Like, you get to set boundaries of what this is. And two is high availability, right? So you want to be able to fall back from OpenAI to Anthropic or whatever. And so you're going to see all of this live today. But why does this matter to you? Fundamentally, the idea here is that applications are built differently from the way that they were built before. And so for those of us that grew up writing applications in C++, I even wrote mainframe code. So don't judge me. It was my first job writing a mainframe C++ code. And so it was really like, you have a database, and then you have a web app, and maybe you introduce, a distributed log like Redpanda to make sense if you're trying to deal with the scales, etc. That's not the case today. It's not just that code is generated, but that is structured differently. Observability is differently. And so the intuition is, agents are the outsourcing of the business logic. That's what gives you the speed, that you don't no longer have to code if you didn't pay your bill, you got your credit score, or if you're this particular customer for our support agent, that you only get access to these subsystems and you only get access to this particular clusters. That's the outsourcing of the business logic. And so it's reduced to a set of tools. And so you need to think differently. Therefore, like, agents are a different way of constructing applications today. This is why you need a new layer today. This is why it matters to you. And so right after this session, we are going to be joined by Tyler Akidao, a longtime friend and CTO of Redpanda, to talk about Oxla, which is a new acquisition. I'm not going to steal his thunder. We're also going to be joined by Adam, who is the original author and founder of Oxla. And we're going to talk about attacking the memory bandwidth and how does this relate to agents? Like, why do you need a query engine to tackle this gnarly concept of context management, of compaction, and etc. So stay tuned for the next session on that. But I really want to conclude and take a couple of minutes here to share some of the sessions that I'm really most excited about, that are the most anticipated. So 2 years ago, I wrote a blog post that I called Redpanda 1, and we'll share that in the Slack for those of us who are live connecting with the live Q&A here. And so it was the thesis that most use cases are in a latency spectrum of cost, durability, and high availability. And so this idea that you can write to Redpanda for a subset of topics and get multi-AZ effectively reduced to zero, because you're using the bucket, the tiered storage bucket, as a way to offset cost and data replication across nodes. But the key difference between this and anything else that exists in the world today is that you get to choose the latency per topic. So in the same cluster, you can choose ultra low latency topics. Like for some of the sporting events, it was 800 microseconds to write to the particular topic, and write to a fully disaggregated, not write through cache to the object storage to reduce costs. So check that out today. And then the last feature that is probably the most anticipated by some of our largest banking customers in particular is this idea of multi-cloud, multi-region, etc. So that's all wrapped in what we called disaster recovery. I'm not going to spoil the feature name, the capabilities. There may even be a demo. We shall see. And so super excited to have you all join. Thank you for being part of Streamfest 2025. I couldn't be more proud and excited to share this and celebrate this moment with the community. Thank you for joining us today.